Everybody hates the IRS except tax professionals. And that's because tax professionals know that Congress, in their laws, are specifically vague. A lot of times there isn't enough detail to actually know how to apply that law for clients, for tax preparers. And so the Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department were created to be able to help interpret the tax code so that people could actually apply it and be able to file their tax returns. So today we're going to talk about 3 sources of law created from the Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department, or the administrative sources of law. Let's get started. So the 3 types of administrative sources of law, those created from the Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department, are Treasury Department Regulations, Revenue Rulings and Revenue Procedures, and Administrative Pronouncements. Treasury Department regulations are regulations issued by the U.S. Treasury Department under the authority granted by Congress. The interpretations provide guidance on the meaning and application of the code. They're arranged in the same sequence as the Internal Revenue Code. However, a number is first added before and indicates the type of tax or administrative, procedural, or definitional matter to which they relate. For example, Treasury Regulation Section 1.203 identifies what this regulation is about. First, the 1 before the dot indicates what type of information this is regarding. This is over income tax law. 20, if it was 20.203, would indicate estate tax, 25 gift tax, 31 employment tax, and 301 identifies whether or not this is regarding procedure and administration of the tax code. Then 203 is regarding the particular code section that is being referenced, followed by additional information as is necessary to further illustrate the regulation in the sections, the section, subsection, part, clause, etc. indicated after 203. Types of regulations issued by the Treasury Department include proposed regulations. Proposed regulations are what they would propose a specific interpretation to be. All regulations are proposed before they are finalized. This allows taxpayers and other individuals to comment on the legitimacy, the applicability, the ease of administration for that particular regulation. These are referenced through prop regs. Then it is finalized and it becomes a force and effect of law. Temporary regulations provide immediate guidance when it is important. It has the same force and effect of law as finalized regulations, and there is no comment period. These can be cited as precedent. Precedent means that it has a force of law. This history of law, as it has been created, that's called precedent. And precedent can be overturned through case law, etc. But here we're saying that this is law, this can be cited and can be used and relied upon. It must be, however, issued with a proposed regulation to allow comment on the proposed regulation so that when it is finally finalized, it then has that additional information provided by taxpayers and other individuals. A temporary regulation has a 3-year expiration. These regulations are published in the Federal Register first and in the Internal Revenue Bulletin. Final regulations are then issued as Treasury decisions. They are classified also as legislative, interpretive, or procedural. The next form of administrative sources of legislation are revenue rulings and revenue procedures. Revenue rulings are official pronouncements of the National Office of the Internal Revenue Service. They are cited as Rev Rule and start with the year that it is published as well as the number in the number of revenue rulings that there are published consecutively. These are examples of how the IRS would apply the law to specific fact situations. They are not precedent. You cannot rely on revenue rulings on your tax return and expect that when you then submit your tax return that you can say, oh, but this revenue ruling said this when you're audited. The auditor will laugh and say, don't care, it's not a source of law. These are not a source of law because they're not approved by the Secretary of the Treasury Department. These arise from issues that taxpayers see, issues that the district offices of the IRS experience. These come from court decisions that they either don't like or they want to interpret on specific other issues, suggestions from tax practitioner groups, or various tax publications like Tax Notes or Taxes, the Tax Magazine. Yes, that's a real thing. Additionally, these are published in the Internal Revenue Bulletin, a publication of the Internal Revenue Service. Revenue procedures are a little bit different. These are internal management practices and procedures of the Internal Revenue Service. These are cited as Rev Procs in the year that they are published by the number in the order in which they are published. These are published to increase taxpayer compliance, and they help the IRS administer the tax laws more efficiently. Failure to follow can result in unnecessary delay, moving a tax return forward, getting your refund, etc. These are published as well in the Internal Revenue Bulletin. Then, letter rulings are issued for a fee upon a taxpayer's request to describe how the IRS will treat a proposed transaction for tax purposes. These only apply to the taxpayer who asks for and obtains the ruling. These are not precedent except for that particular taxpayer in that particular instance. The IRS does limit the number of individual rulings to pre-announced areas of taxation. They do not issue letter rulings for fact-oriented situations. The IRS issues over 2,500 letter rulings each year. These are published in the IRS letter ruling reports published by CCH, the daily tax reports by Bloomberg BNA, and tax notes from the tax analyst. Again, where do these people come up with these publication names? Other types of administrative pronouncements are Treasury decisions. These are issued by the Treasury Department to promulgate new regulations, amend or otherwise change existing regulations, or announce the position of the government on selected court decisions. Again, these are not precedent. However, they are published in the Internal Revenue Bulletin and the Cumulative Bulletin. Determination letters are very similar to letter rulings. However, these are issued at the request of taxpayers and provide guidance on the application of tax law after something has happened. These are also issued by the area director instead of the national office of the IRS, like letter rulings. So to describe what the difference of these are, let's go through two examples. Shareholders of Red Corporation and Green Corporation want assurance that the consolidation of the corporations into Blue Corporation will be a non-taxable reorganization. The proper approach is to request that the National Office of the IRS issue a letter ruling concerning the income tax effect of the proposed transaction. This is an appropriate purpose for asking for a letter ruling. And another example, Sherry operates a beauty salon in which she employs 8 stylists. To comply with the rules governing income tax and payroll tax withholdings, Sherry wants to know whether the stylists working for her are employees or independent contractors. Here, the proper procedure is to request a determination letter on the stylist's status from the appropriate area director. The last form of administrative sources of law are General Counsel Memorandum. These are internal memoranda that constitute the working law of the IRS. These are not published and they're not precedent. These arise from questions raised by IRS personnel and are issued from the National Office of the Internal Revenue Service to field personnel. And these are in the form of General Counsel memoranda, Technical Advice memoranda, Internal Legal memoranda, and Field Service Advice memoranda, as well as Technical Expedited Advice memoranda. These are the administrative sources of law for tax purposes. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe below. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or send me an email at centerfortaxstudies@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.